Today on WETS Community Forum, we're speaking with Melvin Jones, who is author of Love Revolves, the sequel to his first book. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you so much for returning to WETS, Melvin.
I appreciate you having me back. Thank you very much.
Melvin, we did have you on the show talking about your last book. Do you want to tell us briefly about it and how this one is connected to it?
Love Revolves is pretty much a sequel to Stay Tuned for the next episode. It starts about 20 years later. It starts as the main character's son, as the main character's in the second book.
Now, I've read parts of this book, Melvin, and I found it to be quite revealing on a personal level, even though we're talking about a novel. It's not your personal experience, but I know from having spoken to you a few times, there is some of your experience mixed into this book. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. I was a college football player. I was able to see the life of a college player as well as a coach through my eyes, and talking to people, it allowed me to create this book.
And the details of the realism that you were able to put in it about Cleveland and some other locations, you're from there.
I'm originally from Cleveland, Ohio, Warrensville Heights, Ohio, east side of Cleveland.
I really appreciated that. After reading some of those parts, I felt like I knew Cleveland better through you.
I had to do that because even with my children, they have a conception about Cleveland, and I wanted to just dispel some of those misconceptions and give people a little more perspective about where I grew up in, the town that I grew up in.
Melvin Jones, the author of Love Revolves on WETS Community Forum. And as I said, we had him on talking about his first book. Stay tuned for the next episode, and this is a sequel to that. And we find out what the culture of college football is like. And a lot of us have not really seen that except on television or through maybe people we've known. But I think it was really revealing about how it relates to real life issues. I got off of this. Your experience in the football program relates to love and grief and friendship, really tight friendships off of that. And it just seems to me like that those guys who were your mentors and your teachers and your coaches taught you professionalism through that.
They teach you a lot, because once you leave high school and you go to college, pretty much those are 4 or 5 years of your life that you're concentrated on football, school, and this is start of a new life pretty much. This is where you're going to start meeting new people. This is possibly where you meet your wife. You might meet contacts where you might find yourself into another job if your profession is not going to be football, and you take those values wherever you go.
I really got that off of this. Yeah, and I got that it's done that for you. And as we've said many times, this is an imaginary experience maybe in the future.
Definitely in the future. It is. I'll say this, I used a little bit more of my creative writing on this one because it wasn't more chronological. I had to be a little bit more creative on it. I had to broaden my horizons and use a different perspective so to make it more enjoyable.
Really conversational in the style, really realistic. I thought very realistic. I felt like this really happened. I like these were, it seemed like direct quotes that people really said these things, and yet you're making them up.
Some of them, yes, I was making them up. And from people that I've talked to, you use things that people have talked about to make it more believable, more enjoyable.
Again, on WETS Community Forum, we're speaking with author Melvin Jones about his book, Love Revolves, which has been out about a month now, Melvin?
It's been about a month. It was out on December 23rd.
It came out in this book that your college football background instilled in you a striving for excellence in everything you do. Would you describe a little bit to us how that culture transmits to players like you who are now out in the world, ex-players? How does it relate with your everyday life, that experience?
I'll say this. You have to live a structured life when you're playing football. You have to get up at a certain time. You have to be at school at a certain time. You have to be at practice at a certain time. You have to be at study table a certain time. It was very structured for football. So getting into your life, you realize you have to be up at a certain time to be ready for work or get your kids ready for school. You have to be at work at a certain time and get off at a certain time and be ready to take them somewhere. So it plays into that hand in hand, and you have that structure ingrained in you. Like I said, if you're playing football for that full term, the 4 to 5 years, and if you happen to go a little bit further, whether it be pro, semi-pro, whatever, you still have that same structure. So I want to say, since I played Little League football, it's always been ingrained in you. You do this, you take care of this, and then you move on to the next thing.
And I think that structure and discipline that you've gotten off of this and keeping a schedule in your life probably helps you deal with all of the challenges that life throws at you. One of the major challenges in your life, I think we'd like to talk about in a few minutes, that involves your son in real life, who is 7. Has he turned 7 yet?
He'll be 7 on Valentine's Day.
Okay, he's getting ready to turn 7, February 14th, and we have an event to talk about that's coming up. But I noticed, Melvin, in this book that the titles, I don't know if this is significant, but the titles of the chapters look like football play numbers to me.
They are
Is that
football
what they are?
plays. Yes, they are. It
It's
ties
a neat style.
It ties into the fact that the main character is trying to be a football coach. That's his goal.
And that's in his mind. Okay.
That's in his mind.
Okay.
He thought that he'd be able to take his football talents to another level. He wasn't able to, so he's trying a different way to become what his father wanted to be a professional, and he's going to try to do it as a coach. So, yes, it entails football plays that I've heard of or I've learned from or that I've done myself throughout my football travels.
And again, today on Community Forum, we're talking with Melvin Jones, author of Love Revolves, bringing some of his life experience into a novel that he has written. One of the things, Melvin, I got off this book is you definitely, I think, trying to convey to the reader more than just excellence in football. It seems to me like you've had a number of life lessons from your family's legacy in football, your own participation, and you've put that into this book. But is it based on real life, but not exactly what happened?
Certain parts of the book are based on realistic actions that have happened in my life. But like I said, a lot more creative thought, a lot more fictional, a lot more, I would say, broadening my horizons. I don't like saying that, but it does take it to a different level of creative writing that I did on this one compared to the first one. Trying to convey that message that I wanted the people to get, especially when it comes to the fact of the main character, when he becomes romantically involved. It's kind of hard to just keep on talk about the same vernacular of football and people get disinterested. It had to have that steady flow where people understand, yes, this is a guy who's trying to live out his dream of being a football coach, but he does have a side of him that yearns for romance, yearns to be a part of a relationship, and that's where that comes in.
Again, Melvin Jones on Community Forum today. Melvin, tell us how people can find out more about this book, how people can buy this book.
Okay, right now it's on Amazon, Books A Millions, and BarnesandNoble.com. You can buy it on all platforms. It will be ready for iTunes. You purchase on iTunes very soon. I have a Facebook page, Love Revolves, on Facebook. I also did a commercial that I have on YouTube. That was a different aspect of trying to promote the book that I really enjoyed. I thought it came out really well.
Looked like you had some help on that.
Yeah, I appreciate that from Dave Radford. He really helped me with that.
Great.
Yeah.
And did you have a particular audience in mind when you were writing this?
I did. I guess I wanted people who are into romance, who also want a little bit of inspiration to be able to pick up this book and really enjoy it. Because of the creative writing, I really enjoyed doing this book. I thought that this creative writing that I did on this one, I mean, it's going to take it to another level of what I did from the first book. I thought I did it this time.
Yeah.
I really do. And I thought that I had to get this book out. I have to promote this book a little bit more, because once people really get to read it, it's going to just shock people how much involved that I put into this book. I really did. And I was really surprised when I looked on booksamillion.com, and I saw 4 out of 5 stars. I thought, I'm about to arrive, and,
That's
and
terrific.
I'm just waiting to see the fruits of my labor just come, because I really enjoyed this one, and I just find myself from time to time going through chapters and saying, "Yeah, I nailed it on this one," and wanting to put some excerpts out on the Facebook page, but not giving too much of the book, so people would want to say, "I got to pick this book up. This is really, really good. I want to get this book."
So they can get it on Amazon.com, BooksAMillion.com, and what was the other one?
And BarnesandNoble.com.
Okay. Now, I want to take a minute, Melvin, to talk about something else in your life that you wanted help on. Your son is turning 7 on Friday, February 14th. There is an event that is basically, why don't you tell us, Melvin, I want to let you tell us, what is this event? It says it's a blood assurance blood drive hosted by Abingdon Parks and Recreations. Tell us a little bit about why this is needed.
Well, number one, when you're dealing with transplants, you have to deal with blood typing. And one of the biggest things is blood typing people. My son, Marshall, he's going to be 7. He's waiting on a kidney transplant. And one of the biggest issues that we're dealing with is his blood type. He's blood type O.
Now, if we can just back up a little bit, if you don't mind. You told me before we started that he has had a transplant already, was rejected in the next year, about 2010, and he's been living with no kidney since then.
He had a transplant on January of 2009. On October of 2010, it went into rejection. Since then, he had to go through some procedures. At this moment, he does not have a kidney in his body.
So he's having to have dialysis every day?
Every day. He has it at least 8 hours a day. He's gone down on some of the medicines that he's had, but at one point in time, I can say he had to take at least 40 different medicines in a particular day. And do that, like you said, through that football of discipline, I had to make sure each time, each hour, he has to have his medicine at this time.
You've had to become a medical expert. Yeah.
I'll say this. I won't go to school, back to school, to try to be a doctor, but I'm pretty sure I know enough about medicines and about what he has to go through on a daily basis that I can speak to certain things that deal with the kidney.
And I guess it's better, being his parent, that you're educated about his condition. And again, we've been hearing about Melvin Jones' son, Marshall, the event Friday, February 14th at Coombs. Is that how you say that?
Yes, it's
Coombs Recreation Center is Abingdon.
Abingdon, Virginia.
And this is hosted by Abingdon Parks and Recreation.
You'll be surprised how many people need transplants around in the Tri-Cities area. And it'll help out a lot of people, not just Marshall.
So he will be there celebrating his 7th birthday?
Oh, yeah, he'll be there. He'll be there wired for sound. Yes.
Melvin, it's been a pleasure to talk to you on WETS Community Forum today, and I thank you again so much for coming.
I thank you.